book, if you read there's a chapter there on attention and why attention is what I call the coin of the realm for women. It is the coin of the realm in girl world, in that attention is how women form dominance hierarchies, or I shouldn't say dominance, but how they form sort of a pecking order in their collective. From female psychology is really built around collectivism, or like I don't say socialism, but also like an interdependence. We can talk about how women have better social networks, even if they're not on their phone, they still have a group of girls, a group of friends. It's the collective that's important. So if you look at like little girls when they're like 5 or 6 years old, the worst thing in the world for them is to be kicked out of that sort of what they call the peer clutch. And if they're ostracized from that, that's like, I won't be your friend anymore. That's like really heavy shit for little girls. And why is that? Well, because that peer group is what, in our evolutionary past, women were the gatherers, men were the hunters. So women had to form, had to have a better capacity, I guess, to form social networks amongst themselves, because they had to rely on each other for their own survival. They had to rely on each other for nurturing the children. They had to rely on one another. That's one of the reasons, this is theoretical here, one of the reasons why I believe that women have larger social networks is because of that evolutionary past, where they had to be able to talk with one another. If you've studied anything by Dr. Steven Pinker, he talks about how women are more interested in people and men are more interested in things. And I think really a lot of that stems from survival issues when we were in our hunter-gatherer days. And so women had to form alliances with one another, and that's why they tended to be more collectivist, whereas men were more about dominance hierarchies. Who can compete? Who can be? Who's the leader? Who's the one who does the best work? There's research where they've given resources to a group of women and to groups of men. So it might be money or it might be food or something, and they say, okay, you've got this amount of resources, we want you to distribute this among your groups. Men tend to take those resources and they distribute them by merit. So if Joe did a better job than Frank, here you get a little extra, and you get a little extra. You're not as good as him, but you get this, and it's based on like what your contributions are to whatever it was that they're working. Whereas for women tend to be as even as possible. They will say, okay, you get one, and you get one, and you get one, and you get one, and that way we all survive together in a collective, rather than this is based on like how much of a badass you are, right? So there's a merit-based psychology for men in dominance hierarchies, and there's a sort of a collectivist nature for women. And as a result of this, women have a better capacity for communications than men do, with respect to how women are attracted to men or how they're aroused by men, being two different things. A lot of what we'll probably talk about here in a minute is hypergamy, and how that's sort of a redefined term. You don't really get to the red pill, I don't think, without really understanding what hypergamy is. And just how women have a dualistic nature with respect to their sexual strategies. So there's a guy who's the hot guy that they want to have sex with and short-term breeding imperatives, and then there's the guy who's, you know, the good dad versus the good cat, and there's the guy that's the good provider, the guy who's going to be a good father, the parentally invested guy. And so there's kind of like this, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Madonna whore complex for men. Like, men want a woman who's going to be a porn star in bed, but they also want her to be a good mother for their child. It's kind of like this, like a parallel to that for women. So they want the hot fireman in the fireman calendar, but they also want the same guy who's going to go and be a good father and provide and everything else, even in an age when more and more women don't need that anymore. They don't need that provision.
Yeah.
Okay, well, like, people ask me this all the time, like, what's the difference between blue pill and red pill? Red pill was actually something that happened, or the term came up right around 2002, 2003, when I was a moderator on the 𝗧cie𝗺𝗀𝘀𝗶. And we used to start, it was never even called red pill, it was called the matrix. Like, we would say, like, if you believe in like the old social contract, or if you were, we didn't really call it beta, we used to call them AFCs, average frustrated chumps. Now, of course, we've refined things since then. It's been almost 20 years now. But so if you were an AFC, what that meant was that you believed in a set of ideals that modern mainstream culture, feminized culture, has been teaching men and women really since the sexual revolution. And so when I make reference to blue pill, I mean guys who sort of believe in the Disney fantasy of, like what I was saying, like remember I told you about my my brother-in-law. You believe definitely in all of that. Like you do these things, and this is what you get out of life, and this is the rule book that we're playing by. And so if I play by the rules, then I'm going to get rewarded for doing the things that society says that I should have, or that my mom said, or that Disney said, or that the girls that I ask said. You know, what do you want from a man? Okay, fine, I'll be that guy. Guys are deductive problem solvers, and so we'll go along with whatever the instruction manual tells us. Well, if that instruction manual is false, then you've got to either figure it out on your own, or you've got to find a better instruction manual for how to build your life, or whatever it is that you're going to do. So we start calling that like guys who are locked into the matrix, and then of course we came upon the red pill analogy. Red pill analogy is this, is that the blue pill is kind of like that old school, the things that you were brought up, the old social contract, the things that you believed are supposed to be true about men and women. And that can be anything from like men and women are equal to, you're going to find the one, it's a set, really blue pill is a set of ideals that men, and I'm using this in terms of men are sort of embedded with when they're younger, and then they live that lifestyle out until it either blows up in their face, or they find something better, or something happens to them, and that's what we call being unplugged. So when somebody reads my book, or they start reading, red pill, quote unquote, red pill material, and they start understanding the nature of men and women, and they understand intersexual dynamics better, then they become what's called red pill aware, or unplugged, whatever. And we're using these euphemisms, really is what they are, but we say red pill and blue pill because it sort of is an analogy, of course, to the Matrix movies. And so when you become red pill, you become aware not just of what's going on around you, but the falsehood, I guess, of what you were taught when you were younger to believe in, and now that doesn't gel with what you're learning and what you understand right now. So it's sort of a breaking away, or it's cutting yourself away from that old blue pill self and becoming something else. And that's a really tough transition for guys, I think.
Yeah.
So in a nutshell, really, blue pill is the old idealism that you were taught from a very early age. And red pill would be sort of cutting yourself away from that and understanding how the game and how the old social contract is false, and how this new social contract is really what's going on, and how can you better adapt and play the game better in this new social question. So what is hypergamy? Hypergamy for women is alpha fucks and beta bucks. That's the best way I can put it. Alpha seed and beta need. Women need two things in a guy. They need a guy who is a good specimen, who has physical prowess, who is good looking, who is the hot fireman, the guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun, as I like to call it. The guy who is fun to fuck. That's who they want. They want the guy who is fun to have sex with, who is if you go and you don't believe me, go and look at all the stats for Tinder.
Well, sure, yeah.
So that's one side. That's the alpha fuck side. Then there's the beta buck side, and the beta buck side is just what I've been talking about. Is they want a guy who's parentally invested, a guy who is going to be, invested in raising the kids, invested in providing for her, be a nice guy, be the guy that she wants to settle down with, a good dad. It's cads versus dads. And what I'm saying right now is that women no longer need dads, and so what's left? Cads are the ones that they're focusing on right now. And so that's why Tinder is really just an app that is used to facilitate hypergamy. So hypergamy is alpha seed and beta need. They need an alpha to reproduce with, but they need the good, dutiful beta guy with whom to raise children with, who is going to be there to provide. And we change the legislation and the law so that women can facilitate. They find some way to do this. So But what you just said is this: is don't you think that men are just as hypergamous? And I'll tell you no, because only women are hypergamous because their sexual strategy is focused on quality. Remember what I just said about how men's sexual imperative, or biological imperative, is unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Women can't do that. They can't afford to do that because women only have a peak value window of maybe 8 years or 10 years, somewhere around. I peg women's sexual market value peak years at about 22 to 23 years old. When women say, oh, my biological clock is ticking, and they're like 30 years old, no, it was ticking back when you were 22 or 23. And so what happens is women's mating strategies focus on quality, not on quantity. They're not looking for like a bunch of guys because they can only have one baby at a time. Men, with every ejaculation, we can potentially father thousands of children. So that is reflected in men and women's sexual strategies. So men are focused on unlimited access to unlimited sexuality. Women are looking for alpha seed and beta need. And so as a result of that, it alters women's mating strategy so that they're looking for the best that they can get they would love to have both. I would say that most women would like the complete package. So guys who are very good looking, guys who have fame, guys who have a lot of money, all of the things that would satisfy alpha seed and beta need, they would love to have that in both. But right now, the only one that's really necessary for them is alpha seed at this point, because the beta need side of hypergamy is already taken care of. But so now you're probably going to ask this, well, don't men want the best that they can get, right? They want the best, right? We're human beings. Human beings we make comparisons. If I see a little scrawny apple in one hand and I have a big juicy apple, which like I evolved over the course of millennia to opt for the big apple because that has the most survival benefit to me. So of course we make comparisons, but only women are hypergamous. Because what happens is, because of the differences in our our mating strategy, because of those differences, men will happily have sex with a I'm gonna be a little crude here, but men will have sex with women who are above them in sexual market value and below them in sexual market value. So because we are focused on unlimited access to unlimited sexuality, I'm sure you've heard the joke, nobody's ugly after 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. So if you got a guy who's, let's just say he's a 6 on a 10 scale, he would love to get with an 8. He would get with a 9 for sure. Unlikely, but let's say he could get that. But after a while, if he's got a dry spell, and he'll go with the 5, he'll get with the 4, he'll go with the 3, right? Because if the necessity is there, men are not hypergamous in that they don't have an attraction floor, is what I'm saying. So men will be let's just say they're an SMV, a sexual market value of 6, they'll go below that and they'll go above that. Women will not go below that. Well, not willingly anyways, okay? When I talk about hypergamy, I say this, is that hypergamy does not seek its own level. It always seeks either at or above itself. So if a woman is a 6, she's not going to look for a 5. She knows she can, especially in this day and age, in social media and everything else, but she's not going to go, her natural propensity or her natural sexual strategy is not to look for guys that are below her. It's to look for guys that are above her. Mm-hmm. So when I say hypergamy does not seek its own level, if she's a 6, she's going to look for a guy who is a 7 or higher, and preferably even an 8 or a 9. And again, all of this is according to what she perceives herself as. So if she sees her, like guys will ask me this all the time, I see hot women with ugly guys all the time. How does that gel? How does that happen? Well, there's usually something that offsets that. Either she doesn't see it might be a self-esteem issue. It might be her necessity at that time. Mm-hmm. So if she is in, financial straits for whatever, she might go with a guy who we would think of as being beneath her on sexual market value, but her natural desire is not to go with the guy who's ugly. Is to go with the guy who's better looking than she is, because this goes back to what's called the sexy sons theory. She wants to have sex with the best specimen that she can have sex with, because she wants her children to be the next generation of sexy sons, the ones that are going to mate, and her genetics will go on into the next will do better because she made better choices.
Right.
So that's the difference there. Women do not, or men do not have an attraction floor. Women do. So they'll stay, like you got it, like I was giving you the example. If you've got a woman who's a 6, she'll stay with a guy who's a 6, but that guy better bring a whole lot to the table. He better have something that offsets him just being of the same sexual market value as she is. She wants the guy who's a 7, an 8, a 9, if she can get that. That's ideal for her.